concern themselves with themselves, and that they function in life, and that they're good people, right? We just don't have enough, and I'm not going to get into that because it would be too hard to explain it, and I don't think I would be convincing at this point based on what I've covered, right? So what Nietzsche does, Nietzsche's account of morality repositions the focus from the social to the individual, right? So instead of talking about the masses of the herd and me blending and becoming part of the herd, let's move away from the social back to the individual, right? Let's move away from the herd. And this is really, I'm trying to give you as basic as it is. It's definitely not, it's not even close to a Cliff Notes version, 30 hours of lecture. But, I mean, this stuff should stick, right? If anything sticks, this should stick. And if you get this, then you can construct Nietzsche basically based on these points, right? Look, too much of what we had done up until this point was buttressed on the fact that most of moral dogma, most of Christian theology, almost all of Christian theology was pointing us towards the other. Nothing was telling us to look for our own personal excellence, our own personal goals. This became self-indulgent, this became vain, this became prideful, and it was condemned on all accounts. Nietzsche's saying that becomes problematic because there's going to be a certain generality, a certain malaise within the herd, a certain boringness, a certain bourgeois, a certain ordinary blandness. But the individual is precisely just the opposite of the bland boring, right? The individual, there is a sense in which you can undeniably recognize a passion about a particular individual. This dude, he's got it. That chick, she's got it. I don't know what that thing is. I can't put it into words. I don't know what it is. I can't make sense of it, right? But he, she has got it. What is it that they have? They have their identity as distinct from any connection to an identity informing them. My identity isn't contingent on people informing me or giving me thumbs up or likes or views or none of that. My identity is contingent on a passion that I have for philosophy, right? And I'm going to communicate that till the cows come home. Somebody has a passion for music or art, they're going to communicate that, and I love watching those YouTubers, or games, and they're going to communicate that. You can sense their passion, and it's contagious. It really is. Right? So Stoical morality is antithetical, obviously, to Christian morality. Next page, 47. And here's a quote. Thus, the man of moral idiosyncrasy is unknown to himself. That's exactly what I said. You disappear from yourself. You take away the mirror from the young girl, and she no longer sees herself in a literal sense. You keep that mirror away from her gaze, figuratively, for her entire life, and then she's desperately trying to remember the beauty she saw once in herself, and she can no longer see it. Because she's repositioned and been reprogrammed and been retrained to identify and to seek those things out as beautiful in the world, rather than in herself, right? And this is the true tragedy. This is the true tragedy in Nietzsche's will to power. This is the true tragedy in Nietzsche's will to power. It is not just decadence, not just the collapse, not even just the notion of exhaustion, which he's talked significantly about, but the loss of self, right? This ultimately becomes the final sort of death blow to the individual. I don't like using the word psyche, right? This becomes a death blow to the individual, right? I can't see myself anymore because I have been so trained to be thinking about the concerns of others that I don't know what Jason was meant to do anymore, right? Because, what am I going to do because people don't like me? Or what am I going to do because people think this? Or what's going to happen if he doesn't do that? Or I'm always obsessing and concerned with other people's interpretation of myself. Man, whatever. I'm concerned with myself. I'm going to do me. And that's all that's important, right? So thus, man of moral idiosyncrasies is unknown to himself. Morality as the only scheme of interpretation by which man can endure himself, a kind of pride, right? A destructive pride. He doesn't mean this in a good sense, right? That morality becomes this. It becomes something in which you are proud to say you're able to do. I'm able to govern myself morally because someone told me how I should live my life, and I don't veer from those rules. And I'm pride in the fact that I can be conditioned. Well, that's a good thing, because if you can be conditioned, you're letting me know that you have already been acclimated. Your brain has already been properly trained to look outward And I get paid to do that, to do exactly that, to train you where to focus your attention. But once your worldview has changed, and once you see things in a new light, you can't unsee it. Right? You can't watch a movie for the first time twice. Once you've seen it, it's seen. And your interpretation of phenomena is going to be completely transformed. The real rebirth after your knowledge has expanded. The more your knowledge expands is the more, arguably, obviously this is biased, and I'll admit that, but I do believe that the more knowledge that you acquire of all kinds of knowledge, even contradictory knowledge that you acquire, is the broader your real perceptive interpretation of the world is. I don't look at the world like other people look at the world. And much smarter people than me don't look at the world that I look at the world. And if there's the smartest person in the world, however she looks at the world or however he looks at the world, it's that perception that I want. I want to see the world like that. I want to see the world with those eyes, right? It's like Neo in the Matrix, right? When he you know, it wasn't the pill that he took, it was a way in which he changed his mode of thinking. And when he changed his mode of thinking, he was like, I see the Matrix now, right? It was in a sense, he had to transform himself from within. Other people might say that you have to do it other ways, but, you know, he transformed himself from within to arrive at a state at which he could perceive the world objectively, and what you're going to see is pure contradiction, for the most part, right? You're going to see a lot of contradiction, but hopefully you have the type of mind that can absorb those things and not, you know, let it drive you mad. So A, Christian morality displaces man from himself. We saw that, right? It pushes, it forces out, what's the word I'm looking for? Purges, right? Christian morality purges man from himself. It separates man from himself, right? So if this is an individual, what ends up happening is Christian morality, CM, places pressure on man through the thou shalt, through commandments, right? And it forces man, in a sense, it like rips man, right, from himself. More and more pressure until man is finally separated from himself, right? I don't know who I am. I've always been concerned with looking outward. I've always been concerned with obsessing about the other. So if there is no other to obsess about, right? If there isn't this other person to focus on, I literally lose myself, right? The Christian morality displaces man from himself. There's a separation, a depersonalization. I hate that word too, but a depersonalization, right? A sort of a disconnectedness from myself. It encourages and fosters and conserves a herd mentality. We know what the herd is, right? And then lastly, on this first bit, C, man's accomplishments can only be understood in terms of its approximation to the divine as a consequence of divine providence. And I spoke about this way back. I don't remember where, but I spoke about this before, where, you know, the athlete wins the Olympics or the big boxing match, and they say, who do you want to thank? And the first thing that they say is, I want to thank the divine. Why? Because if I say, I want to thank, you know, I just want to acknowledge the level of dedication that I put into training and doing sit-ups and running and punching a bag or whatever it is I did to get to the point that I am, just the sheer determination, and Gatorade for giving me the Gatorade would love that. That would be awesome. That would be a real Gatorade commercial. You drink the Gatorade. Hey, what do you think about, who do you want to thank? I want to thank Gatorade. They engineered strength. Yeah, that's what I do. I thank Gatorade. Unfortunately, I don't need Gatorade I don't need Gatorade as an academic, so I don't know who I would thank, right? I thank Nietzsche. Right? I thank Nietzsche for opening up. He changed my worldview, and I see the world differently now for a better reason. But yeah, you get the idea, right? It's like, as soon, you know, this idea that it can't be about me, it has to be directed outward, is the reason why everything is always, all accomplishments, all accolades go to the divine. That's why I love Tupac. The most heretical track, not the most, but one of the most heretical tracks that Pac had, and it blew up. It was All Eyes on Me. All eyes on me. Look at me, I'm an exhibitionist, right? All eyes on me. And then he knew that he was doing, Pac was, I can't even do, I should do a whole lecture series just on Pac, right? The contradiction in his flow, you know, he'll be talking about one thing in one song that it's completely antithetical point in the next song, and people didn't quite get it. Pac was like, no, I'm